Hello and welcome to the Strat Show, where we discuss all things Stratocaster.
Hi kids! Welcome to the Strat Show. Today we got an amazing show. It's going to be so exciting and tremendous. We're going to do some white Strat restoration. We're going to talk to a good friend of mine about Strats. We're going to talk about stupid Strat inventions. It's going to be great. But first we're going to get right into the nitty-gritty. What is it that makes the Strat sound the way it sounds? What is the sound, and what are the controls and the special design of the Strat? What can you do that makes it unique for that kind of instrument?
Now guys, I need you to bear with me because I'm expecting to get in a lot of trouble for these videos from YouTube, even though I'm literally using every single one of the fair use exemptions. Some of the videos, because of this, I'm going to show you I have the sound turned down, and some other things I have the sound in the background or I'm playing it myself. That's not because I'm trying to make a second-rate production. It's just because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube too badly. This is a comparison between three different Strats, each one quite different from the other, and one is in the 70s, one's in the 90s, and one's in the 50s. And I will also show you how these sounds are done and how to play surf music sounds, which is another style I'll get into next. The Strat is more than just being a little bit more versatile or a little bit of a different tone from all the other guitars. There's some things you just can't do except on a Strat. Namely, things like about half of Jimi Hendrix's repertoire. It's an old story, but I'll tell it again. There's some things you can't do on any other guitar except a Strat.
Okay, we're going to come back to that, switch gears entirely, and talk about my white Strat restoration.
The story behind the white guitar is I'd always wanted a white guitar, and I was out of town. I was in Germany and bored, and I had a lot of per diem, which I couldn't use. So I went to the biggest music store in like the universe, which is in Cologne, Germany, otherwise known as Cologne, Germany. And I bought a Squier Strat, which is the entry-level, bottom-of-the-line Stratocaster guitar. It doesn't even have the name Fender. It's called a Squier. And I got a white one. When I got home, I replaced the pickup covers, the volume knobs, I tuned the bridge, I put a new pickup in the bridge position, and I bought a new neck, put some tuners on it, because I wanted a white neck. I sold the old neck, which had a rosewood fingerboard. So I didn't want the sound anyway, but I also wanted it to be as white as possible, so I got a Canadian white maple, which was also very bright wood neck, put that on there. And it basically, I put it together and it's a piece of crap. I basically left this guitar overnight. Let's see how well it has stayed in tune. This thing needs a lot of work. Oh, here's something. It gets stuck on this fret, right in the middle, right here. Because these were not sanded properly. The bridge is terrible. The bridge is a floating bridge. It's supposed to have a vibrato. But even just a little bit of using it, it's already out of tune. So, that's another problem. This bridge is a regular old, plain old Fender bridge, and therefore crap. It is a 6-point bridge. 6 screws go in, which is a really unnecessary design because 2 does the job fine. This just gives you more surfaces to hang up on and create friction and problems when the bridge is moving. So I converted it to a 2-point bridge by just using these 2 screws, and these are all too high to be effective. And that helped, but it still sucks. So we have a problem with the bridge. Problem number 2. It's in tune, right? Now let's do an open chord. Oh, that is a problem with the nut. So we have a tuning problem, we have a nut problem. What else is wrong with this thing? So why go to all the trouble? What's so cool about this guitar?
So you're telling me you bought a $150 guitar, $350 worth of work into it, and turned it into a $40 guitar. Am I following? Yes, that's correct. And I'd like to welcome to the program Sarcastic British Me.
Hello.
And now it's time for today's trivia question on the Strat Show. Jimi Hendrix once, in an important concert, played a guitar that was not a Strat. As hard to believe as that is. It was an important show, and you have to tell me, the question is, what kind of guitar was it, and where was the show? And was it a chicken caster? Was it a Fender Jazzmaster? Was it a Gibson Flying V, or did he borrow a guitar from Jerry Garcia's collection? Did he borrow Jerry Garcia's BC Rich? So the answer will be given
It got stuck. So, this thing I think deserves some attention. Surf music, that's easy. One Stratocaster, and we turn the reverb all the way up. On the old systems, if you turn the reverb all the way up, you get this strange kind of water drop sound. And now we turn up the echo and make it fast, and you've got surf music. Let's turn it back down to a reasonable level instead of the level I was at for demonstration. sound, surf music.
Well, this is fun. I have to share some of this amazing fun. It's just too much for one person, so I'm inviting a guest to the show, David Fenster.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, sir.
How's it?
Okay. I'd like to segue into the new part of the program with our first guest, who is David Fenster. David Fenster is like us. He's very into gear, but in a different way. First of all, he's a drummer.
Very, very different way.
In a different way. Like, we're more of the technical, shiny, new stuff in the store kind of guys. He is very into his own environment, and whatever is around can have a percussive element to it. And, there's some philosophy behind that. I've seen these videos. Everything has a rhythm, that kind of thing. So that's David's department. And being very close to nature, from South Africa, which I think a lot of people there are. So he's come up with some really amazing inventions. Not like the Stratocaster, but amazing inventions. So I thought you'd appreciate this. As a segue, we were talking about some old-timey rock and roll, like the Ventures and the Shadows and the old Strat sound. And the sound of surf music has a very specific sound, right?
Right.
So what you would do on it is...
Ooh, that Hank Marvin, what a great sound.
Right, so there you notice all the fenders. That guitar is a Stratocaster. You can only get that sound with the Strat.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so what you would do is the reverb is up to 10. They turn the reverb all the way up. And the way the reverb the old-timey reverb is basically a tank, a metal tank with two springs or 4 springs that go the length of the thing. The reverb, see that? These are springs, right? So one tube is dedicated to it in the amp. One tube is dedicated to it in the amp, and it sends a signal there, and it comes back, and it sort of limits this amount of signal. You turn it up to 10, it's all the way open. It sends electricity through that, and how springs are. You ever play with a spring? They vibrate, and then they take a while to calm down. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, with a spring. I was going to rip a spring reverb out and show you, but so if you turn it all the way up, they start hitting each other, right? And if you ever taken an amp while it's on and put it down and it goes really loud, that's because the springs are hitting each other. But if you turn it all the way up and you're very careful and you don't move the amp at all, you play, you get this sort of splashing kind of drip kind of sound. It's very strange.
Oh, hey, that reminds me of something.
This is me demonstrating the...
Hey, you see that? See that? The spring?
Yes. You got your own spring. It's fantastic. Man brings his own spring.
The spring has sprung.
And then you get surf music. You get sounds like the Shadows, and it's very distinctive. And then the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. Wow. So that's guitar with reverb. I always thought it was someone whistling.
No.
Joking.
That really high, thin sound is either a Stratocaster or Telecaster. It's usually a Strat. So because I liked that sound, I ended up listening to guitar players and groups that had that sound, I think, more. I looked at all my favorite guitar players, and they all play the Strats, pretty much. Do you find yourself gravitating towards one kind of gear because of one kind of sound you want, or kind of influences, or sort of brought you in that direction? I look back and I realized that all of my superheroes were Fender people, and that I can't do what I do on any other guitar.
Wow. I mean, by virtue of my age, I sort of have tended to play on vintage gear. My first drum set, which was bought me when I was a kid, was a second-hand set. Actually, the exact same model that Ringo played before the Beatles were famous.
Ludwig.
The first recordings he played it before Ludwig. He played
Before
a
his-
Premier set.
Oh, okay.
Premier kit. And the set my parents bought for me secondhand when I was a kid was that exact same set from like 1961 or something like that. Ringo had it for a year or so before the Beatles hit it big and he moved to Ludwig. But so I've always had an affinity for that sound and that look of vintage. But it's not always the most practical, but I just emotionally feel attached to it.
Well, back in our early days, yours and mine, there weren't a lot of choices. I mean, back, you're talking about influences, especially our influences that were older. I mean, there was a few different types of guitars in the early 60s, like you're talking about. And there was Gretsch and Epiphone, and there weren't a whole lot of them. Now, and then Fender came in and just blew everyone away with the Stratocaster, and then they screwed up. But now there's so many different choices. I don't know, how do you choose these days? I mean, you'll find that. Before, when we were kids, it was like there were 3 or 4 different price range, and that's it.
You're right.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's something very liberating in that. You know, when I think about it, a drum set, what other term do you know for describing a drum set? You can say someone plays a drum set or plays
a kit.
And there's another word that used to be called the traps.
The trap, yeah.
Well, what's that? Trap is actually short for contraption.
Oh, really?
Like a drum set. Yeah, a drum set was like this. It was like Dr. Frankenstein. If Dr. Frankenstein decided that instead of building a human, he would build a musical instrument, he would have made a drum set. You know, you take a bit of a snare drum from the military, and you take some cymbals from Turkey, and you take a bit of some tom-toms, I don't know, African, North American, whatever.
Yeah.
Throw in a cowbell from Cuban.
Right. And then you're Mickey Hart.
It's just a mixture. It's just this contraption. And as a drummer, I feel that when it comes to gear, I can do whatever I want. I can attach a frying pan from the kitchen onto my cymbal stand if I like the sound of it, and it's absolutely acceptable.
Yeah. So in the Strat,
so my gear is everywhere.
It's whatever you want. So Strat, there's like a sort of a limited universe of what's something that's called a Strat, even if it's not made by Fender. You know, I'm trying to figure out what that universe is. See, I have this problem. I have all these. I have 4 guitars. I have 4 Stratocasters. 2 are copies. One's mostly a copy, and then the other. One's a copy. One is almost a copy, and then the other 2 are. And they all sound different, which is great. Like, some of them have problems with them, and I got this huge thing, and I got to do all this restoration, and I know I don't have a ton of money, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do with each part. Maybe we can pick up later, but thanks for coming.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for coming to the Strat Show. We'll talk later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.